In this brief talk, I want to address some of the opportunities which AI brings to us as humanity, but also particularly to those of us who are working in education, both students and their teachers. We start, though, by thinking about what do we mean by intelligence, and I like this particular Leg Hunter definition that intelligence measures an agent's ability to achieve goals in a wide range of environments, that an intelligent machine, artificial intelligence, is one that is able to do that, is one that is able to achieve its goals in a wide range of environments. But the same applies to us as humanity. Are we able to achieve our goals in a range of environments? Well, self-evidently, yes, at the moment for us as a society, for us as a civilization. But to what extent is that something which you wish to nurture, which you wish to cultivate in your pupils? Are you teaching them to act as intelligent agents? Are they able to achieve their goals in a wide variety of environments? That if that's what we're trying to do for artificial intelligence, then certainly for human intelligence, this needs to remain a goal of the educational process, I would suggest. We ask ourselves, what does it mean for a machine to be able to think? And way back at the foundation of the discipline is the idea of the Turing test, that a machine might be described as intelligent if it could persuade an intelligent observer, a trained observer, that in a text-based interaction, that they found it impossible to tell the difference between a machine that they were talking to and a person that they were talking to via some sort of text-based chat system. What does this mean for us? Are we anywhere near to that yet? In very, very artificial circumstances, under certain constraints, yes, I think we're getting very close to that, and indeed a version of the Turing test has already been passed. But perhaps we think there may be more to intelligence, more to acting intelligently than simply being able to fake one side of perhaps a very stilted conversation. We might talk about creativity, that the genuinely intelligent entity is something that is able to be creative. Let me play you a piece of music now. Oops. I think you might describe that as rather reminiscent of Bach's work. What you have there, though, is not music composed by a person, but music composed by a machine that has been trained to compose music in the style of, I think in this case, Bach, by David Cope, a composer or as a programmer. It's difficult to draw the distinction here. Who do we credit with the creation of the music that you've just been played? Do we say that was inspired by Bach? Certainly it was. Do we say that that was composed by David's program? Yes, I think we would. What role do we give David Cope in this? It's a very similar exercise to that which we might set to music students. Does that demonstrate intelligence? Not in that Leg and Hunter definition of a wide variety of goals. But if we say humanity's unique talent is that of creativity, then we certainly should be nurturing that in our schools. But to say that that is now unique to humanity is another matter entirely, I think. Or do we say that this is something about consciousness and understanding of the self, of being self-aware? And you'll perhaps be familiar with the Chinese room problem, that there inside a locked room you have a big set of books of how to respond to particular Chinese phrases that are being passed in. So a particular string of characters comes in, you look that up in the book and you respond in the appropriate way as the rules define. Does that mean that the person in the room understands Chinese? I don't think it would. Similarly, the machine that just responds in a programmed way or according to rules that it itself has evolved. Does that mean that the machine is conscious? Well, this is how things are at the moment. I have no doubt that things are going to get more and more interesting over the years ahead, that the tools that we develop, the machines that we as a species, as a civilization make, will get more and more advanced, that what we can do with this technology continues to expand. If at the moment you're somewhat underwhelmed by what machine learning systems, what AI is capable of, I'd say give it another 10 years. If the only limit is what our technology currently allows, then perhaps things will change quite dramatically in the future. Do we get to a point where the machines can do pretty much anything? Well, perhaps not quite anything, but many of the things that human beings are employed to do are going to be things which the machines can do and can do very quickly and can do probably far better than we would ourselves. And there are implications there for us as teachers, which part of our role the machine would be able to replicate. But there are also, of course, implications for our students. If what we see education, schooling for, is preparing them for the workforce, preparing them for jobs, then there are implications if the machines take over many of those jobs, if artificial intelligence makes many of the current roles of human beings something which it would be very difficult to claim a salary for, as a machine learning system would be able to do those very effectively, very well. So what then are the implications for education, for what we teach in schools? GDPR includes, as part of Article 22, the idea that there should always be a human in the loop, that decisions that affect individuals at a dramatic level should not be made entirely by automated processing systems, that there should be the ability to get an explanation from that, and that there should be somebody in there who is able to override the recommendations of the machine, who is able to contribute to the decision. So perhaps there will be a small part to play in that way, but perhaps there is much, much more that we could do. In England, our Education Act enshrines what the curriculum of a school has to do. It has to be broad and balanced. It has to promote the spiritual, moral, cultural, mental, physical development of pupils and of society. And I think that gives us a touchstone for what education should do, even in the age of the machines, that there is still a purpose to education which goes over and beyond preparation for the workplace. Perhaps when the Education Act was framed, this idea of preparing pupils at the school for the opportunities, responsibilities and experiences of later life was seen in terms of employability, or at least further study. But in a world where artificial intelligence plays a significant role, those opportunities, responsibilities and experiences might be far, far richer, far more varied than they perhaps are in contemporary society. And thinking ahead to what opportunities, responsibilities, experiences our pupils are likely to have in the coming machine age is something which I think is an important responsibility for us as their educators. Back in the 19th century, William Morris talked about interior design, that you should not include anything in your house unless you knew that it was useful or believed it to be beautiful. I think much of what we've done in terms of curriculum design has focused on the utility, and perhaps as we think ahead, we need to think much more about beauty, about joy, about that which sparks joy in our curriculum, rather than that which will be merely useful for pupils in their later lives. It would be lovely to think about the things which give them interests, which give them something which they can uniquely contribute to. And I come back to ideas of creativity. We should, of course, also include an education about AI, a House of Lords in England that argues that children need to be adequately prepared for working with and using AI. They indicate that for a proportion this will mean deep, thorough training in AI-related subjects, but for all this will be about the basic knowledge and understanding necessary to navigate an AI-driven world, and that the ethical design and use of technology become an integral part of the curriculum. And that is something which should be there as an entitlement in curriculum for everyone. So yes, a broad, diverse curriculum, as well as preparation for a world in which AI plays its role. Thinking about that curriculum that sparks joy, or that focuses on our essential humanity, I come back to this idea of the non-cognitive skills, of the things that make us, I think, for a while yet, uniquely human, the things which the machines may not be able to do particularly well for a time to come. So whilst we may think of robots replacing teachers in school in terms of setting work or marking work, I think it's going to be a while yet before artificial intelligence systems are able to motivate pupils to learn something that they're not already interested in. the ability to stick at something when it's difficult is going to be something which is just as important in the future as it is now. Educating pupils for better self-control, getting them to think about thinking, to learn about learning, to think about the nature of intelligence, and crucially, the ability to relate to one another. School is uniquely good at teaching children how to get on with other people who happen to share similar birthdays and postcodes, zip codes, location. And I think it will need to continue to do so. Teaching pupils to be resilient in the face of change, and yes, as we saw with the David Cope, being creative, of coming up with their own original ideas that are of value to others and enjoying that. If the machines are very, very good at remembering things, about answering questions, then I think they're less good, at the moment at least, about being original, about being creative. That's something which we